All right, so this will be on the future of 360 photo and video.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the last panel of the conference. My name is Nancy Epperjesse. I'm the co-founder of Metal, and I'm honored to be leading such a fantastic panel. And we're discussing the future of 360 photography and video today. Does everyone get a microphone? I think there's some microphones back there. I'll pass them out. So for anyone that looked at the posting for this event, we had a few questions. So first of all, I'll ask everyone one by one to introduce themselves and what their background is in the industry.
Thank you, Nancy, for hosting this panel. So I'm Alexander Jenny, CEO of Color. Color is a long story already, 12 years old. And we joined the full team GoPro to be able to help building the tools that are needed to be able to capture everything in 360.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Maheen. I'm fairly new to the industry, but I work on the 360 media team at Facebook. I'm a designer, and before that, I was a videographer and worked in video games.
Hi, everybody. I'm Luca Vascon, and I'm into Panoramic since late 90s. I designed pano heads and produce content till nowadays.
Yes, hello, I'm Gela Leopold. I've made my own company, Amilux Film, and I'm just in the finishing stages of my first VR movie.
Michael Kulczewski, this year Vice President of IVRPA, content creator, imagery, 360 for the past 10 years.
Okay, so let's start with the first question. 360 photography, we see a lot of extremely high quality photography. What are the challenges in bringing that same level of quality into 360 video?
So I guess it's the camera manufacturer that will start. There are a lot of challenges with the 360 video compared to the image. The first one is how to manage parallax. Parallax was something that was really easy to manage with imagery, but with video, you cannot manage at capture time. And this is really where all the problem lies currently, to have high quality while not seeing the seams, the stitching issue. Everything has to be captured at the same time, except with some tips and techniques like Antonio's one that has been presented just before. So capturing everything at the same time while compensating for that parallax issue is really the big problem with video that didn't exist anymore in image, because you have time to capture everything. You can turn, you have the time to turn, right? So that's the key difference. Nowadays, I think it's a problem that starts to be solved with different techniques. Many people talk about optical flows or approach deep neural network to be able to identify that. Depth map will help also on that, or our own technology, DWARPs, that also find a good solution into this mathematical problem. So I think within the 2-3 years, that problem will be solved. Nonetheless, then we will need to go up higher in resolution, and that's something that people are not really aware, and especially the mass market, where when they have some small camera, they just say, hey, that small camera, this is 4K. It's 4 times the resolution of 2K because it's spherical. And that is just power hungry on many platforms, on the web, on the desktop. So when they want to edit this type of stuff, it's really complicated, and people don't understand. So we are not even talking about 6K, 8K, or 10K. So that's really a challenge.
So Gerda, in your filmmaking, how do you approach things to make sure you have as high a quality image integrated in your storytelling?
I was just going to say to this question you asked before, what is really getting lost, of course, in filmmaking is when you make photographs. I never saw myself as a photographer, but when you make photographs, you're spontaneous. You just, use them as fun tools. And sometimes when they're planned, there's great imagery, but they're just fun and they just happen on the way. Well, when you make a film, you really want to plan it a little more. You really have to think about what you want to show, how do I show it, and of course, quality is, especially now in 360, rather important, because you really don't want to have stitching lines, because when there are stitching lines, especially in a narrative, the viewer's out. So you really have to prepare. What do you have to prepare? Well, you really have to decide what kind of film you want to make. If it's a documentary, then it's a different story than if it's a feature. What we did, yeah, we started from the high end, which was maybe a bit crazy. We really wanted to have a stereoscopic narrative movie. So we really did a lot of planning, and especially with building the sets, because it was all basically built and filmed in the green box. And that took a lot of planning. And what we also did, we will never do again, we really said, let's take the time, let's take 6 weeks for it. So if there is a problem, if we have to repeat, there is time.
Luca?
I think there is something we have to keep in mind. That's going beyond the technical facts. We are going towards a world in which the distinction between photo and video is no more there. There will be no distinction between photo, video games, interaction. We are going not towards VR video or VR photo. We are going, I would recover an old name that was used here in Europe in the 90s, immersive imaging. That's altogether between video games, video, photography. It will require, first of all, a good grip on the language. What we should focus on is language. Technique will have to follow.
And how do you see that happening, in your opinion?
In my opinion, there are two small things that are going to change the world. The first one was the Google Cardboard that democratized the experience. The other one are the toy cameras, toy 360 cameras that can record video, photo, etc. And they are going to democratize the access to the knowledge of the media. Once you have that, you will have more people able to think about language. First, what they want to say, and then the language that has to be built.
I would echo the same thought. I think democratization is like a huge part of making it more accessible to people, but also ensuring that we are getting better types of content that are for specific use cases. So an example would be that if U-Turn, one of the experiences that we tried in the VR room, is a great way to think about, all right, well, we have a 360 sphere, how can we tell a narrative on both sides of the sphere? And quality kind of follows if the narrative is strong, if a person is completely engaged in the experience, and there are things you can do that are apart from hardware to make sure that this experience is wholesome and of high quality for the viewer.
Mikhail, would you like to add to that, please?
Well, there's not much to add, but I think there's a lot of things that will be changing in the near future or the long future, things that we are struggling and, trying to evolve. The main thing, of course, it's the storytelling, the creativity, and also to choose the right equipment and the right theme for the specific thing. So it's very important to adapt everything for your needs, what you want to do, and not letting the technology or the hardware camera to let things, put in the path from your creativity and what you want to tell in the story.
I completely agree. I would add that if creativity is good, if the language is good and the message is rhymed, you are in what a video game world would call suspended disbelief. So a small glitch, a small stitching error, small stuff will disappear.
Okay, let's move on to our next question. What do you see as something that would be the tipping point to make 360 video or immersive media widespread for the average person? What would that be, if anything?
I have an answer to that. The 360 video, if you enjoy this type of video, it's really great. On Facebook or on your mobile, you can turn around. It's already great. But as soon as you consume this type of content in HMD, which is, I think, the best way to be emotionally involved into this content, there is also a frustration that arises. It's a 360 content. You cannot interact other by turning the head on. And I think the next big step in this area is really adding a layer of interactivity into that, making something non-linear stuff. You can make your own decision, because that's a feeling that comes, so I'm a gamer. Any game you interact always, and that's the VR polygon part of the VR that says it. You want to interact with that world, especially if you have this type of headsets. So having hotspot, having this type of non-linear narrative option on top of 360 content, I think this is where everything is going to happen.
I think if a person can leave the VR experience feeling like they've done something that they've never been able to do before, whether it's like connecting with a human being, gaining an object that they've never gained in real life, if they've had an interaction that is unlike the real world or that is helping them in the real world, to me that is the tipping point of everybody wanting VR and wanting to experience more.
Well, I think the tipping point would be that the stories which we see are really engaging, or they really keep the tensions really kept. I think, and I don't think particularly. I mean, if it keeps you really there, if you really are, and also the length, I think, is quite a decision point. If you can have longer films, I mean, you have all these film festivals now which show VR. They say, well, nothing beyond 10 minutes, which is somehow, that's not a film. I mean, this, like in normal film, there is short film, which is a different language from 90-minute film. And, it's a different thing. And I think it's the same in VR. I think as soon as you can break through a certain barrier of a certain time and the stories get more engaging, that would be one thing. I'm not so sure about always this interactivity. I've been seeing a couple of films, narrative films, where there was a point where there was another end. There were 3 ends to it. I was desperate for the 3 ends. I mean, finally I found it, and it was very, very constructed. I don't think it's not always, maybe in games or in other things, not always the thing to be and the thing to go to.
Well, that kind of goes contrary to what Luca is believing in, where video, interactivity, gaming, everything gets put together. So how would you answer Gerda's opinion on that?
Well, I think that the future may be the link between all these medias, but not only that. The only one thing that is now it's no more missing. There are more and more people that are able to build a real 3D videos, but it's not cinema. It's another media. It's a new thing. As long as treated as a new thing, and new reels are created for that, I think that it will spread. Doesn't matter if it is more or less interactive, but the basic idea is it has to build up his own language.
I see you want to add something to that, Mikhail.
I want to add something for that. I think this industry is like booming now. It's so many solutions, so many things coming up. We are like really, the earth is moving. And I think, going back to the basic, teaching, educating people, what is the difference between things, because sometimes I even meet professionals that are mistaken in the language of saying what is 3D, stereo, anaglyph, interactive, immersive. we are in the times that we are washed on with different things that we can do with that. But we shouldn't force only, we should adapt each thing. We shouldn't force it or as a solution for something. We should say, for this thing, maybe 360 it's not a good solution. Maybe this one is better. So, education, teaching the language, because it's a new language. We are now in a new era. It's a new medium that we are teaching. We've been in 2D. We are moving to 360. People don't understand it. We are inside. We should, move it and teach them the language difference. So.
I think at Facebook too, we're particularly thinking about maybe thinking format first is not the way to go. Like we shouldn't be thinking 360, 180, 3D photos. We should be thinking about how do people want to express themselves? What are the stories they want to tell? And then figure out what technologies are there that can help fulfill those needs. But when we do the opposite, then we're just trying to provide all these solutions that are just making this industry even more saturated and more confusing for people.
Yeah, for sure. You could call it almost a digital renaissance right now, where technology is opening up a lot of opportunity for content creators. So there's cinematic 360 filmmaking. There's a convergence between gaming, immersive experiences. So how does a content creator know where to go in that?
I think that the content creator should get a grip on technology, and content creators should become an hacker. The new content creator is the one that builds the technology he needs to express himself.
Well, the content creator should be disruptive. So you basically, come up with ideas which have not been there before. So I think that's always, new content is always, I think the real challenge in VR is that, you have the physical aspect of it, that you can actually be lifted, you can fly, you can fall down, and but you must do it in such a way that that the viewer doesn't get sick. But it's of course a very important aspect, which is not there in normal cinema.
Yeah, for sure. There's challenges when you're experimenting to also create a good experience for the viewer. But that's part of the learning process too. So what is Facebook's opinion on that?
I think in terms of content creators knowing what to create and where to go, this isn't a Facebook answer, but this is more I think this conference has done a great job of connecting people that have different backgrounds in what they create and what they want to create, and sort of sharing that knowledge. So during our workshop, we had these people at this one table where content creators were sharing their work with each other, and they were learning from each other about all these tools that they've utilized to build their own things. And so they were sharing, at the end of the day, their experiences and just sharing that knowledge. So right now, the knowledge sharing ecosystem might not be that great, but I think it's in its early stages. Events like these are key to making sure that that knowledge flow happens constantly.
Well, Facebook is also introducing content creation tools, right?
Yeah.
To help the average person just add interactivity.
Yeah, well, for us, we're trying to create awareness overall globally for creators, but also non-pro creators. So things like having Facebook 360 camera in Facebook itself, so people can start understanding what it's like to take a 360 photo without ever investing in a camera, or seeing content.
Introducing people to going beyond the frame. I have a question for the filmmakers. 4K. 8K, where does it end, and where do you know what you should be shooting at?
I think there's also a lot of confusion there, because it's not only about the pixel size, it's also about the quality of lens, the quality of the sensors. People are not really understanding completely this, and I think the support also is important. Where it's going to be. If it's going to end up in a telephone on your head, it's going to be, if it's going to be projected, you need to adapt things to stuff, and also to adapt. The quality is also important, but with 4K, we've been doing amazing stuff. 8K with low image quality of lens is it's not good. So, you know.
Well, look, I think there's going to be a, what do you call that? A roof, because in the end, how much can our eyes really take? I mean, I remember a long time ago when I was making posters, you can't have an image which is 3 meters by 3 meters and has 300 pixels per DPI. It doesn't work. It hurts your eyes. You have to go down. So I think it's the same here. You can, okay, 8K, if it's perfect, fantastic. But I think much beyond it, I don't know if I can actually even look at it, or I want to look at it, if it's so over sharp. I mean, I have this problem by now with a lot of television. I mean, it's okay with television screens, but they don't have to get any more accurate.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. So for your film, what?
6K. And if it's possible, we can also play it out on 8K. But that's, you know, I mean, that was for us also at the beginning, yeah, the roof.
And when is your film coming out? We can give you a bit of a plug here.
My film, well, we are in the final stages of post-production. I mean, all the compositing is, I mean, the whole film was filmed in green screen, and it's all stereo. So all the compositions are by now ready, and we are now basically in the editing process.
Great. So, Luca, 4K, 8K, what are your thoughts?
Well, it depends on the media you are making the content for. If you're making media for actual distribution on the internet, I would say that 4K is enough. If you are thinking about the future and you want your media to be actual from here to 5 years, I think, okay, maybe 8K, but then you see some movies from Akira Kurosawa that were not made in the top-notch quality of today, and they are capable of such a great emotion that, again, say the content, the content is the leading thing. Even before thinking technically how many pixels you have to stuff in.
So that is fact. It's a legacy of what the marketing of all camera manufacturers did. More pixel is better. So I think we should move a bit away from that. And the real question right now is more the delivery platform and how we are going to show some content that are 6K or 8K to the end users. And currently, there are not that much solution. Even if you upload 8K to YouTube or to Facebook, I don't even know if it works, 8K, honestly. But it's really complicated to get something playback to the end user. So it's really about, I think the general consumer will be fine with a 4K because that gives already a nice emotion and a nice experience. But as for more professional people, that makes really quality content and that they have a business around that justify this high quality. There is still a lack in the market for high-end delivery platform that can ensure that this high resolution is there. So I would say it really depends on who you are as a content creator. For general public, I think 4K it's fine. As a professional, I wouldn't see any good work being done now below 6K because this is what we will need probably quite soon to be able to give that to the client. So
yeah, I agree completely, and I would add that the final media is very important to be taken in consideration. We produced some video for Panoramic theater that involved, if I remember they were 12 projectors together, 12 high resolution projectors. 8K shouldn't be enough. Our content was around, I think, 12K, but the limitation of the structure was that basically you had 45 degrees 22 up and 22 down the horizon. Or even if you are producing media for the Cube Theater, you have to take in consideration that you have a limit on down. And so you shoot and you make your content on behalf of the media. It has to be played on. So
there's been support recently on the major platforms for 180. What are your thoughts on 180 content compared to 360 content compared to Panoramic?
I think that it's a new form of media that will play well in some situation, better than in fact the 360. Because if you think, for example, in sport, when usually most of people try to shoot in 360 first, but they cannot put the camera on the field. So meaning half of the sphere is just the viewer, the audience, meaning the people on the start. So do we really care about that? We care about what is in the front of the lens. So this is where a situation like a soccer match, so something like that, where I see far more advantages for a 180 3D than a 360 completely. There are some situations where both won't play the same, won't give the same emotion. So it's a new format. I think we should give him a chance because I think it will be relevant depending on the situation.
I think it's a great way to ensure that a lot of people that have never touched 360 can feel comfortable going into the VR world and being able to create for it. So some of the things we hear creators talk about is like, my friends would love to create 360 content, but they're too overwhelmed. And so 180, especially with depth, is going to allow them to tell stories that are even richer in ways that we haven't before. We noticed that with 180, because of the depth, we're able to see that people presence is really well done. And so if we can get people to create interesting concepts around that, then maybe a new type of storytelling will come out of it.
I want to add to that. Also, there's a new medium now that it's going bigger. It's an entertainment-based installation. I think 180 is really important for that, like a dome or something that moves. So you don't need really to move back to see things. So the main thing is going, to be until 180. So adding that.
We created very nice content that was 220 a few years ago. I think that even this, the language is going to be a part of the message. So who is creating the message should decide how many degrees are interesting for that media. And also, if you put yourself in the end user shoes, let's talk about, okay, we have a cinema, so we have fixed seats. People may wear a VR set and look around, so 180 is okay. Or we can imagine that everybody is going to play the content in his house, so standing and rotating around. We had a very nice experience with a small video, small documentary that was 5 minutes more or less about Africa, Ethiopia, etc. And we played it in VR sets, and people was free. We were outside. People was free to turn around. Mainly children did that. Elder people did not. Very few of them. And they were standing and looking around, moving a bit, bumping on each other. You have to consider all these things. So welcome 180, really welcome. But it depends on the end, where this thing is going.
Yeah, it's both ways. It also depends on the creator, like what type of story they're trying to tell, but also like where these experiences might be viewed.
Well, rationally, I could agree and say, well, that's true. It depends on what film you want to make. But actually, emotionally, I say no. No 180. I might as well make a cinema movie for the normal screen. But I think I really like the closed-up 360 world. I have to say, I really don't see the point of 180.
Okay, I should agree with that because you can cut it, the 360, in any way.
Of course you can cut
it.
That's true, but why then not having just a normal screen?
Because. Yeah.
No, I mean, seriously, I mean, what's the big deal about it?
It depends on where you want to scream it, of course. If you scream it
there's a couple of things. So I completely understand that 360 is a more powerful medium if done well, but I think the issue we see is that a lot of people don't know how to do 360 well. And so 180 is a way for them to start learning about how can they start telling stories for VR and then move on to 360 to tell stories that are better suited for that situation. To your point, we also find that with the Gear VR, when it came out, people were using Gear VR sitting in their chairs, sleeping while being on the couch or while being in bed. And so there's no habits built around looking around. And so on a 360 scale, we need to be able to tell stories like you are to ensure that people have a good enough reason to look around and be fully engaged. And I think it'll take us time to get there.
Okay, we can see a lot of difference in opinion, obviously. So I think one of the best ways to tell what people believe in is what are their next projects. So that personally talks about what they're betting the future will be. So can each of you tell us what a project that you have planned is? Is it 180? Is it 360? Is it stereo, 6K, 8K?
I will start 360. Yeah, I'm a 360 person.
That said.
360, 4K?
360.
So give us a bit more detail, like a 360 short film.
Moving for video is very, for past few years, but I'm continuing to create in panoramic, interactive panoramic, high quality, HDR, putting more interactivity inside. I think this medium is haven't been really appreciated before, and now it's been appreciated because of the video. But I see that people are interested also in the quality, so they're coming back to the photography also. So it's a 360 interactive, immersive content. So, and also putting inside mix, opening up. I like to investigate different channels, maybe AR, putting in it, trying to also collaborating. It's an interesting time also for communication, collaborating with different kind of persons that do different kind of stuff. But I'm 360. Everybody, they can, join and put things. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of on the same wavelengths. We're now in the finishing stages of our film, and then we'll also have it make various tryouts. How it will? In the project before, in this film Carousel, we built a cinema cube, meaning it was not a dome. It has 4 walls plus ceiling. It was really rectangular. So we're gonna make a lot of tryouts how this film and other VR films we have already started will also look in this cinema cube.
So how big is the cube? What are the dimensions?
The cube is 10 meters by 10 meters by 6 meters. So it's a bit of an elephant, but on the other hand, it's very impressive when you sit in there. And it accommodates 70 people, so you have a real cinematic experience. The only side which is not played at is basically the floor, but I think people would go nuts, quite frankly. Would be a bit too much. And so we have made a lot of tests. We also can actually translate all sorts of other VR films, except if they're too light. I mean, if it's a snow riding, if it's a ski film, maybe that's not working. But everything else, we can actually transform into the cube map format and show it in our cinema cube. So for that, we'll also. I'm sort of planning on a few little kind of things, a few little films about. Little turning points in the lives of famous people, or like there is a painter in Austria, and his death is now 100 years ago. His name is Egon Schiele. I grew up with some of his work around me, and I would like to do a little piece, for example, about his last hours. He died when he was 28 from Spanish flu, and his last hours knowing that he's dying, and when his whole life is unrolling in front of him, that I would like to do as my next project, and would be also great to show in the cube format.
Sounds very intriguing, and it sounds like it'll be a great experience. We look forward to seeing that.
I hope so, but I still have to write the book.
You just named my favorite painter.
Oh, really?
About future project, I'm a 360 person, and basically I'm a photography person more than a movie person, and one of those will definitely involve a non-linear telling. So in the middle between video, photo, and everything else, and video game. I'm in highly interactive panoramas and things like this. Another project, it will involve, a thing that was quite forgotten in our world, but at the times of QuickTime VR, and many of people here are from that times, VR objects. They are quite a forgotten thing, but I think it's time to revive and have a project for that. Finally, I want to explore the 180 stuff and the stereo 180 stuff, but I have to figure out how. First I need something to tell, something to say, then I will be using that media even to try it out.
For Facebook, it's not about 360 or 180, it's about supporting the full ecosystem. So moving forward in the future, we are supporting everything that it requires for creation, to create 180, to create 360, to create 3D, to create photogrammetry, and then everything on the consumption side. Where do you actually consume all these different types of media? Is it in Facebook Spaces, so you can experience it with your friends? Is it a new type of app where you can do something else with the content? And so we're thinking a lot about how can we keep supporting this ecosystem and help get it from point A to point B. And a huge part of that is talking to content creators. So we know we've been plugging this a lot, but we do have a confessional photo booth. And so it's really important for us to have creators come and tell us what exactly do they need in their workflow, so we can tell our teams this is what we need to build to support those types of creations and consumption experiences.
Great.
So I will have a dual answer here, really the one for the consumers, because currently the capture device we use to create that is good, but not streamlined enough. So we need to work on that. So it's from a capture to ingestion to the final platform like Facebook or Google. It's just super simple, and it works everywhere with every platform. So there are still some work to be done there. The second aspect is more for professional users. There is big lack there that exists, that needs to be solved. And one of my big concern is really about having the technology that allows everybody to express exactly the creativity. So I'm really a strong believer in the technology we did for GS that can bridge the gap between there's a 360 content, there's an image, there's a video, there's a point cloud, there's a 3D object, there's an animation coming from 3D Studio Max or from Maya and stuff like that. I want to merge that in a unique object and share that through the web. This is something that needs to be done, but also on a professional level. There are already some tools there, but they are too much focused either on the gaming and not really on the web platform. I'm also a true believer that the web is the platform, and that everybody needs to support, and we see. And I think the ultimate platform for delivering everything is not native, it's really through web, through open standard.
Okay, and we're seeing those first steps across the board now that people are going towards. So before we continue, we have a great panel of experts here from across the world. I wanted to ask if anyone in the audience has any questions, something that they would like to direct at our panel. Now is a great opportunity.
Thank you, everybody, for this interesting discussion. There's obviously the last 5 years, the major growth that we've seen is in communication. That's why Facebook, that's why telephones took over basically our life in some ways because of the implications that the need for us to communicate. As a creator, often what blocks us to reach higher level is the wearable. So I'm just asking you this question, is this possible to envision an immersive future without wearable?
Okay, so essentially moving beyond the headset. Right now, you ingest 360 on a phone, or, I mean, on a browser on your computer where you use your mouse to click around, or in a headset. Definitely the most immersive experience is in a headset. How can we, do you see us moving beyond that to some kind of a device? I think that's the race that all the tech companies are on now. What's the next smartphone? What's the next device? So what's your opinion on that?
So that raises definitely the question of AR, augmented reality, because this is really where we see a lot of really killing application arising. So I don't think AR is something that we should fear, definitely not. We should embrace, because many of the challenges of AR, because we did VR, we have a lot of the tools and a lot of the knowledge that people don't know in this area. So AR, we see really tremendous work being done there that will get there. So I would love to be able in a museum and just get my smartphone and yeah, I can see the museum having overlays, augmented applications to the painting, or if I'm in Italy, in Pompeii, where this is how it has been in the past. So we want to have that, but until we deliver this type of there are still some work to be done to be able to create that and to be able to share that.
Yeah, I think...
So, but what do you think it would be? Is that your question?
It will be a critical part of the past, so meaning it will happen. What it will be it be a lens? Will it be glasses? Wearables also include some... I consider the GoPro themselves as a wearable because you can put it on your head and stuff like that. That will allows you to stream your life and stuff like that, which is really important also. But I don't know which device we will be in the future, holographic, whatever, or Magic Leap headsets. It's going to happen. We need to be ready to be able to produce content for those platforms, because as exactly what happens 2 years or 3 years ago, all the big partners that did the HMDs, they were hungry about contents. They didn't have contents. And we were quite only a few in the world that have the knowledge to create that content. So when this device will get out, we already need to have the tool set and the knowledge to be able to produce that, because the first arrive there with some good content is the one that will, again, in all the tech industry, takes everything.
Maheen?
I think at Facebook we view VR as a stepping stone to AR, like understanding everything we're learning now, helping us be ready for that AR world. Technology-wise, we're still really far away from it, and so everything we can put into AR to learn about it to make sure we are ready for that future. What exactly will it be, I can't say, but it definitely feels good to know that what we're learning about today can help us for that future.
Well, wearable. I tend to agree with you and to imagine the very next future, but I would like better to... I'm very fond of science fiction. I'm a science fiction reader. So when you talk me about wearable, I see a lot of books, movies, animes I've seen in last years. And I think the future will be hijacking the eyes and going directly neural, being able to envision things without the problem of sight, without the problem of the actual vision.
So you think people are ready to put something directly on their eye?
Well,
Directly on the brain. No, we are not ready
Next
now.
step, directly.
well, listen, look at cataract operations. I mean, you know, you basically get a new lens. And when you were short-sighted before, then you don't need glasses anymore because they put it into the lens. So I'm sure it will be possible that they actually put in a new lens into your eye, and you are able to see all sorts of things without a headset. That I can envision.
Mikhail?
Well, it's a good question because I don't know. It's like Play Ready One. I saw this movie, you know, in 3D in IMAX in Paris, and I was wondering if we gonna be isolating ourselves, if we are ready to be isolated, if we want to be isolated, or if we want to get. You know, 360 is to discover, and this is good because you are immersive in everything, but we are missing the human touch, the human interactivity. So are we taking the interactivity for ourselves for being immersively more inside, or we are taking it out? Maybe the technology will surprise us. Maybe the future movies, you know, will become true. Like, or there will be like classes like Alexander wear that we can, you know, like Google try to do this kind of things, you know. So wait and see, but I think we need to create it. We need to want something. If we want something, the companies will, I think, will adapt to it, and we try to solve it. So we need to say what we need. The people want, not the company to oppose on people what they need.
Or to build it ourselves.
Or to build ourselves, but yeah, we need this financial support and everything else to make it public and, you know, to show people. Of course, you know.
Does anyone else have a question?
Yeah, so I listened to a podcast. Sorry about that, guys. I listened to a podcast called Voices of VR. It's by Kent Bai, and he ends every episode by asking the guest, what is the ultimate potential of VR and what might it be? What might it enable? I'd like to pitch that to you guys. What is the ultimate potential of VR and what might it enable?
So VR, it's the last. Go there. Let's have a VR experience, and if you can mimic every interaction that could exist in real life with VR, meaning even haptics, even smell, stuff like that, this is, you don't need teleportation anymore. So I think this is really the long-term future for that. There will be a lot of steps until there, but...
Maheen?
I think I already kind of answered this. The ultimate potential of VR would be when you can do something in VR that you can't do in real life. When you feel like you can achieve something that's beyond what you can do in real life, then you've achieved something greater. I think even better would be if you do something in VR that can help you in real life. One thing that we want to make sure we're not doing is getting people away from the real world, kind of like Ready Player One, and getting them into VR and just changing their entire life, and then they're starting to neglect their real life. We need to make sure we're building a strong relationship between what is in the VR world and what is in the real world. How can we watch movies that can help us feel more empathy for people in real life? How can we teach people things in VR that can help them become better at something they do in real life? And so that relationship, when that's really strong, I think that's the ultimate potential.
Well, the ultimate potential of VR is experience, is being there and making an experience you can't do in real life, or you delayed in the real life. The way how will be used is beyond us, I think. Like contemporary philosophers said, we don't have to let technology to be the savior of the world. We first have to save ourselves. So, VR is experience, basically. So we build experiences.
Well, if VR is getting really as good as it could, as the potential is, it can get extremely dangerous, and we have a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, just to add in, supporting to make a better world. Maybe this is like not unuse it for other stuff, and also hearing people what they want this medium to support in their lives. Yeah.
I would step in with a thing that you said before. That's one of the things that we are talking about with VR is isolation. When you go to see a movie in the movie theater, you are with other people around. If you pull a VR mask on you, you are isolating from the rest of the world. So let's work towards a VR experience that is more interactive, that stimulates interaction. And we don't need VR to isolate ourselves. We have been able to do it since many, many centuries ago.
That's true, but I don't think VR makes you so isolated. I think, that can be also rather lonely to be in a dark cinema alone. I mean, it can be really a very lonesome experience, and it's not VR which makes you lonely.
True that. So, as humans, we are social creatures. So it's part of, we're all trapped in our own heads with our own thoughts, and VR is a way of showing what's in our head to other people. How can we join people in more social experiences? Should I be saying that next to someone from Facebook? But what are your thoughts in content creation for 360? How to make it a more social experience?
That's a tough one.
I will go back to education. If it's medicine, tutorials, people that want to learn something, and also to learn. I don't know. There's many talks about empathy, but this is a really, really, for me, difficult because empathy comes with experience, and to teach unexperienced people empathy, it's really hard. So we should, I don't know, maybe concentrate in education and, seeing how we can contribute for that as a better world. Also, there's a publicity, of course, and, just put in cinemas, put in it and all other mediums that are supporting it.
So VR for good.
Yeah, I think, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I can.
You made a great point about we are social creatures, and so everything we do is around that. When you go see a movie in a theater, whether you see it alone or you see it with a friend, what happens after the theater is the discussion. You are talking about what you experienced, and you always want to talk about what you experienced, whether it's writing a blog post if you watched it alone or writing a review.
Great point.
And so Facebook, we have our bets on making VR social, ensuring that you have someone to share it with, but also making it flexible that if you don't want to be with someone, you don't have to be with someone. And so it's important to make sure that VR doesn't feel lonely, and it's important to ensure that if you want to be alone in it, you're able to share that experience with someone, whether it's on newsfeed by sharing in from VR out to newsfeed or vice versa.
For me, the idea about is VR social, is VR not social, is somehow not the right question. It's neither this or that. What it is, it gets you sort of a level deeper than a normal movie, if it's good. Because it goes on a different level into your memory and the feeling what you have experienced in life Because the real daring and the challenge of VR is that you see something, and afterwards you feel you haven't only seen it, this is part of your experience of life. And that's, you know, therefore I don't really have that. That's why I have a problem with, is this now social or not? For me, this is a different medium on a different level.
So it's just the value of the experience stands on its own.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to say anything about how they feel about that?
Well, in VR, I've heard two things that I liked very much. That VR is very social in the moment that you use it for teaching. That's true. We have seen, in my speech yesterday and in another speech today, VR used as a teaching thing for communicating something, and in two brand completely different way. And they both are things that grant users some experience that they are completely wanting to share and to confront at the end.
With a lot of our experiences, we've learned that having people has made the experience better, but I don't think that means because the experience was great already. It just means that sometimes there's not enough to do in VR, and when you have people, it allows you to do more things. So with Facebook Spaces, we found that we created this space where you could meet with people, but if there were no people in Facebook Spaces, then you would just leave the headset. But if you had someone across the table from you, you would just have discussions with them. So it's all about can the content stand on its own, or do you need people there to do more things with it?
I think we have only about, how many more minutes? About?
Minute.
Okay, 5 minutes. So does anyone else have a question?
Actually, I didn't have a question. I wanted to bring up Facebook Spaces and more recently Oculus Rooms, and just throw out another shout out to the Facebook team. We've been super excited with Oculus Rooms in the Go. The other day we had a reporter in the office, and even though it's a little weird with all the feedback going on, to have three of us in the same room in an Oculus Go in another room in VR, all as avatars. If you guys haven't tried this yet, in a 360-degree video, which is amazing that it supports it. Sometimes it crashes it, but it's such a great experience. I'm really looking forward to one of my top other things that I'm looking forward to this summer is my mother just got an Oculus Go. She has no idea how to use it. We'll get together and I'll show her.
That's awesome. But
then, I'm going to be able to give her a call on Facebook and jump into a 360 video that I'll probably stumble upon from one of you and say, Mom, I want to show you this, and then she can go into it, and we can sit there and we can look at each other, and I can point to things, and we can point out and say, oh, look behind you now, because for years I've been sort of judging this medium against her ability to get it, right? And with Google Street View, she got lost with the click and drag and the look around. With the mobile, she got it a little bit more, but with this, I think we finally have the ability where we can sit together in a dome, yes, as avatars, but we can actually see. I don't care whether or not I can see her mouth move or not, but I can see her, she can see me, and we can have this interaction one-on-one. As far as social, I'm just super excited about the Go and Oculus Rooms.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay. So we'll move on to the next question. I think Chris from Blend had a question.
Thank you. I'm just curious to get a sense from the panel where you think we will be in the next 12 months. So this time next year, what will 360 look like, and whether it's emerging use cases or where the format sits?
Hard one without saying anything. I really think that the next big step is everything around. You can capture 360, but do you really want to have that as the final video that you are going to broadcast? So I think one of the big challenge currently is how you use the 360 as a master for something that will tell a story in something that is more mainstream, 2D video. Because 360, I always consider that as the raw file, raw material, you have everything, but most of the time there are only some of the locations, some direction that are interesting. So how you are going to go from 360 to 2D video in a more easy way, I think in 12 months, that's a problem that could be solved using deep learning, whatever techniques, we don't care, but really storytelling, if you understand the footage well, then you can build something that is a far more usable tool to capture, while you don't require the final user to point to the right direction.
I should let my PM answer this, but I would expect more people to be creating for VR. On Facebook's end, we are particularly going to experiment more with what kind of experiences can your 360 content, your 180 content, your 3D content be in. And we would just hope that within the next 12 months and past that, more people are creating content for VR.
I will be very simple. What I expect in the next 12 months is to finally be able to explain to people what I do for a living.
Great answer. I'm sorry, I'm not that original. I think there will be a lot more cinematic VR stories and VR films out there.
Well, I'll be original. I don't know. I don't know what will be, tomorrow. So, I don't know.
That's a good answer.
And on that note, I think we'll wrap up our talk, and we can continue
Surprise me.
during the supper.
Another IVRPA.
Bring it in.
That's what's in the next one.
See you next time. We'll see.
So, we'll take one last question. Yes, we can hear you. Oh, someone's coming over with a microphone. Just hold on one moment.
Hi, hello. It's a simple question. As you know, stereography was presented in London in the year 1838. And the next year, Louis Daguerre presented the photography in Paris. And now we are using the stereoscope to see 2D pictures. Why?
That's your question? Why?
My question is, why are we using the stereoscope to see 2D pictures? Because the Google cardboard is based on David Brosner stereoscope.
Okay, so I'll just repeat the question. With a technology that's not new at all, why are we trying so hard to introduce and improve stereo on a 2D image? Well, in essence, turning 2D into 3D imagery. Why is that so important? And there is a lot of effort being made with cameras, in post-production, and there's great challenges in making that work and making it comfortable for the viewer. Why, after 100 years, why is that still a challenge and a goal?
Well, I mean, hello? Yeah. For me, stereoscopy only works in 360 degrees because I think in a cinema picture, a frame, it is completely, it doesn't make any sense to have 3D. Why? Because the picture is limited. The actual frame, separates the picture from its background, which is black. And why then, of all things in the world, there should be stereoscopy in cinema?
So you don't think there should be stereo?
No, not in cinema films. In 360 degree, it's for me the only way to make a film there, because there it makes total sense.
But why does it make total sense?
Because it makes the world real. Because it makes the world palpable. More
immersive.
Definitely. Because if it's monoscopic, it's all back there, out there on the wall. But if it's stereoscopic, it's right in front of you. You want to grab it, you want to touch it. and that's it. I quite agree. I don't understand why this should be in cinema films. I mean, if there is a cinema film in 3D, I go off and watch the mono version because, well, it often doesn't work. It's great with animation, but that's a different story. You have title animations, they're always good, but they're right in front of you.
Yes,
there's nothing in the middle.
It's
always either there or in the back. So I don't understand it.
Well,
go ahead, Luca.
Okay. Why are we still there? Well, in 1995, we rediscovered a media that was invented by Robert Barker in 18th century. We rediscovered a few years ago 3D cinema that was basically invented as soon as Magic Lantern. And Fujifilm came up with a 3D digital photo camera that basically was the same as the first Frank and Eideke Rolleiflex 3-lens camera. Well, many of these things went down, then up, were forgotten, rediscovered. Problems of marketing, problems of, I would say, problems of content creators. If you don't make a movie in which the third dimension is essential to the movie, is a base of the language, that media and all the hardware marketing that's behind will not grow, will not surpass the first hype. I think that with VR, we already surpassed the first downhill, and we are already over. We are dreaming a dream that's basically you can see in science fiction, in Matrix, in what was the name, Till the End of the World, etc., in which you can experience things that are beyond reality. So we have that thing into the back of our minds. We are looking in that direction. We are still looking to 2D pixels on basically on a phone and some lenses. But we dream the neural connection to the other world.
Do you want to add to that?
Yes. Stereo content and capturing live stereo content is really hard, and that's currently the only solution that exists that really gives the feeling of immersion, because feeling of immersion, several psychological studies did show that it depends on 3 factors. The first factor is the major one. You can turn your head and the content turns around you. That is the most powerful feeling. The second one is not stereo content. The second power in the feeling of immersion is the sense of parallax. If you have something that moves around, if you do that, an object occludes other object, this is what gets you far more emotion. And the third one is only the depth, meaning the depth coming from stereo. So the problem is that currently we haven't solved the volumetric video problem. It's too much data. We cannot do that. So we cannot really make a good and powerful enough and immersive content. So we are using old techniques like the stereo techniques, which is okay, but doesn't have the same impact. So whereas in the gaming industry, if you had a chance to test HMD with game, they don't have that problem at all. It just works out of the box. And their left and right eyes is okay. So currently I have mixed feeling about stereo. Yes, it's kind of nice, but it's not there yet. This is not exactly what I want.
But
I think in the meantime, it's good to have it, but as a temporary ersatz of solution to be able to go to the real final solution at the end.
I think it will help us understand what immersion can feel like. So when we think about like 360 versus photogrammetry, photogrammetry with our demo for point clouds, it actually gives you a very different feeling from what 360 gives you as a feeling. So when we think that headsets like Oculus Go will be sixed off one day, then like how are you able to actually interact in an environment, move around an environment, look around? And that kind of being ready for that future and experimenting now with formats to get there is how I would view it based on what everyone else has said.
Okay, thanks. So I think if the question is, we don't have time. We really have to wrap it up now. You can speak to the panelists after this wraps up. So I'd like to thank everyone for coming today. Everyone can have a hand for our amazing panelists. And I'll hand it back to Mikhail.
Thank you very much, Nancy, for...
Thank you.
Thank you all.